Palpatine built 150 contingency orders for the clone army. They cover everything from bureaucratic succession plans to the literal extinction of the Jedi. But the very first one, it doesn't exist. Nobody knows what it says, nobody knows what it does, and that might be the most unsettling part of all. So let's walk through every single one, starting with the Ghost. Order 1. Here's the thing about Order 1. You can search every official Star Wars database, every Wikipedia entry, every Legends novel, every canon comic, and you will find absolutely nothing. Zero documentation, zero references. And it's not just Order 1. Orders 2 and 3 are also completely absent. The entire system jumps straight to Order 4 in every operational document we've ever seen. That's like opening a cookbook and finding pages 1 through 3 ripped out. You don't know what was on them, but someone didn't want you reading it. The boring explanation is placeholder numbers, administrative slots that never got filled. The more interesting explanation is deliberate redaction. Palpatine designed this system from the ground up. Every order had a purpose. So why would the architect of the most elaborate military control scheme in galactic history leave the first 3 slots blank? I don't know what to tell you, but if a missing order bugs you, wait until you hear what Order 4 actually says, because that's where things start getting real. Order 4, this is the most boring order in the entire system, and I mean that as a compliment. If the Supreme Chancellor gets incapacitated, overall command of the Grand Army transfers to the Vice Chair of the Senate. That's it. That's the whole order. No secret assassinations, no civilian hostage protocols, no planetary bombardment. Just a clean, sensible chain of command succession that any functioning democracy would have written on day 1. The Vice Chair was the only person authorized to deliver this order to clone troopers, and the existing command structure stayed intact during the transition to prevent military chaos. Once a new chancellor got elected, or the current one recovered, everything reverted back to normal. It's genuinely reasonable. Almost suspiciously reasonable. Here's the thing though. During the Clone Wars, the Vice Chair of the Senate was Masameda, the tall, blue-skinned Shagrian who stood behind Palpatine in literally every scene like the galaxy's most obedient coat rack. This guy wasn't a failsafe. He was a rubber stamp. He knew about the Sith conspiracy the entire time. So the one democratic mechanism that could have theoretically prevented Palpatine's total consolidation of power was entrusted to a man who would sooner eat his own horns than challenge his boss, which is, not ideal. But if Order 4 sounds toothless, wait until you hear what happens when the Senate decides the Chancellor is unfit for duty entirely. Order 5, this one's the tragedy. Order 5 is a general emergency contingency. If the Supreme Commander, meaning the Chancellor, is ever incapacitated or unable to issue orders, command authority transfers to the next designated official in the chain. No coup, no dramatic power grab, just a bureaucratic failsafe to keep the Grand Army functioning if the person at the top goes dark. On paper, perfectly reasonable. A continuity plan for wartime leadership. Here's where it gets dark. The Republic actually had an order designed for removing a chancellor deemed unfit. That was Order 65. It required either a majority Senate vote or a Security Council declaration, and it would have stripped Palpatine of authority and put him under arrest. That order was built for exactly the scenario the Jedi faced. Exactly. Mace Windu discovers the Chancellor is a Sith Lord manipulating both sides of a galactic war, and there's literally a contingency order sitting right there that says, if the Chancellor is unfit, remove him from command. But Order 65 required Senate approval, and Palpatine had spent over a decade stacking that Senate with loyalists, sycophants, and politicians too terrified to challenge him. The Jedi knew the democratic process the order depended on was already too corrupted to function. So Palpatine built a system with a kill switch against himself, knowing full well nobody would ever pull it, which is, not ideal. But if Order 5 feels underwhelming next to that missed opportunity, wait until you hear about an order that skips politics entirely and goes straight for brutality. Order 32. So after all that talk about democratic safeguards and Senate oversight, let me introduce you to Order 32. What does it do? Great question. Nobody knows. Order 32 is one of the 150 contingency orders programmed into every clone trooper's brain. It's referenced in Legends materials. It exists. That's about where the concrete information ends. There are 0 verified activation records, 0 detailed operational parameters, 0 explanations for what strategic scenario would require it. The entire Star Wars documentation, canon and legends combined, essentially shrugs its shoulders when you ask about Order 32. Its purpose is genuinely, completely ambiguous. Think about that for a second. Palpatine, the man who orchestrated a galaxy-spanning war on both sides simultaneously, who embedded neurological kill switches into millions of soldiers, who planned contingencies for his own apprentice turning on him. This guy sat down and wrote 150 military orders, and some of them are just blank pages. Order 32, TBD, we'll circle back on this one. Busy week. The fan community has basically turned it into a running joke at this point, suggesting that even Palpatine forgot what he put there. Maybe it was a placeholder, maybe he got distracted manipulating a Senate vote and never came back to fill it in. I don't know what to tell you. But if Order 32 is the funniest gap in Palpatine's system, Order 37 is the darkest thing he ever put on paper. Order 37. This is where the contingency orders stop being bureaucratic and start being evil. Order 37 authorized clone troopers to conduct mass arrests of entire civilian populations for one purpose: to force a single high-value fugitive to surrender. Not a military target, not an enemy battalion, one person, and if that person didn't turn themselves in, the civilians became leverage. That's not a military protocol. That's a hostage situation with government letterhead. But here's the thing. If this order existed only on paper, you could almost write it off as some worst-case scenario contingency that nobody would ever actually use. Turns out no. It was deployed on the planet Balassa roughly 1 year after the Empire officially declared itself. Let that sink in. This wasn't a desperate wartime measure. The war was over. The Empire had already won. They used it anyway. A second documented deployment hit the CIS-aligned core world Rosha, because apparently once wasn't enough. And here's where it gets genuinely chilling. Baked into the order itself were mandatory protocols for suppressing all media coverage and scrambling holonet communications in the affected area. Palpatine didn't just authorize the mass detention of innocent people, he built the cover-up directly into the paperwork. Body disposal procedures, communications blackouts, evidence destruction. All standard operating procedure, written down in advance like a checklist for committing atrocities without leaving fingerprints. Think about what that means. Even Palpatine, a man who dissolved the entire Galactic Senate with a straight face, recognized that Order 37 was so horrifying that public knowledge of its use could destabilize his own regime. He wasn't afraid of the Jedi. He wasn't afraid of the rebellion. He was afraid of the galaxy finding out what he was doing to civilians on a Tuesday afternoon. But if you think using civilians as bargaining chips is dark, wait until you hear about the one contingency order that could have stopped Palpatine entirely. Order 65. This is the one that should have changed everything. Order 65 stated that if the Senate majority or the Security Council declared the Supreme Chancellor unfit to issue orders, he would be officially designated an enemy of the Republic. Once that designation was made, clone commanders were authorized to detain him, with lethal force if necessary. Let that sink in for a second. Palpatine built a clone army with a hidden kill switch for the Jedi, but buried in that same system was a kill switch for himself. Order 65 was the exact inverse of Order 66. Same army, same clones, same blasters, just pointed the other direction. Upon successful detention, command of the Grand Army would transfer to an acting chancellor until a democratic successor could be appointed. It was clean, it was legal, and it was arguably more dangerous to Palpatine than every Jedi lightsaber combined. This wasn't some rogue assassination attempt. This was the Republic's own governmental process, weaponizing the military against its leader through completely legitimate channels. And Palpatine knew it existed. He designed the system. But he was so absurdly confident in his political manipulation that he wasn't even worried. He looked at an order that could legally authorize his own army to shoot him in the face and thought, yeah, that's fine. Nobody's going to use that. He was right. This is where the Mace Windu debate comes in. When the Jedi discovered Palpatine was a Sith Lord, Windu grabbed 3 masters and marched into his office to arrest him personally. You know how that ended. But what if he'd invoked Order 65 instead? What if, instead of 4 lightsabers, he'd sent the entire clone army? The Jedi didn't trust the Senate to declare Palpatine unfit, and honestly, they were probably right. Telling a bunch of politicians that their beloved chancellor was secretly a space wizard from an ancient evil religion wasn't exactly a winning argument. So the single greatest institutional safeguard against tyranny in the Republic just sat there, unused, while everything burned. But if you think Order 65 being wasted is tragic, wait until you hear what happened when its mirror image actually got used. Order 66. You already know this one. Everybody knows this one. It's the most famous military order in fiction, and honestly, it deserves to be. But what most people don't appreciate is how perfectly Palpatine engineered it to succeed. This wasn't just a kill order, it was the greatest sleight of hand in galactic history. Here's the thing. Palpatine didn't just create Order 66 and hope nobody would find the chips. He buried it inside 149 other contingency orders that all sounded completely reasonable. Succession protocols, emergency command transfers, chancellor removal procedures. If anyone ever discovered the biochip system, and people did get close, all they'd find was a boring military handbook full of democratic safeguards. Order 65 literally authorized clones to arrest the chancellor. That's not a tyrannical playbook. That's a constitutional democracy covering its bases. And sitting right next to it, one number over, was the extinction of an entire religious order, hiding in plain sight, but the execution is what makes it truly devastating. The biochips were implanted during Stage 3 embryonic development, before the clones had names, before they had personalities, before they had friends. The kill switch was already there, wired into their neurology like breathing or blinking. When Palpatine gave the order, resistance wasn't difficult. It was neurologically impossible. And that's where the real tragedy lives. Not with the Jedi, with the clones. These soldiers fought beside their Jedi generals for 3 years. They trusted them. Some of them genuinely loved them. Commander Cody handed Obi-Wan his lightsaber back, cracked a joke, and then seconds later ordered an artillery strike on his position. Not because he wanted to, because his brain chemistry gave him zero choice in the matter. 3 years of brotherhood, overwritten in an instant by a signal from a wrinkled man in a bathrobe. Within hours, the Jedi Order was functionally extinct. Thousands of Jedi across the entire galaxy, cut down by the people standing closest to them. The Republic dissolved, the Empire rose, and every single clone trooper got to live with what their hands did, even if the decision was never theirs to make, which is, not ideal. But if you think the contingency orders stopped being weird after the big one, wait until you hear what came next. Order 67. So we just covered the systematic extermination of an entire religious order across the galaxy. Cool. Let's talk about dancing. Order 67 required clone troopers to perform dancing and clean their armor. That's it. That's the order. No executions, no hostage situations, no planetary bombardment. Just vibes and hygiene. This one comes from LEGO Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga, where it's revealed that Darth Sidious accidentally issued Order 67 alongside Order 66 during the Battle of Utapau, which means that somewhere in the galaxy, clones were gunning down Jedi generals they'd served with for 3 years, and somewhere else, clones were hitting the Macarena and polishing their greaves. I don't know what to tell you. Here's the thing. Some fans have floated the idea that Palpatine deliberately stuffed mundane orders like this into the system to make the whole contingency framework look like boring administrative paperwork. You're a Senate auditor, you pull up the list, you see clean your armor, and perform dancing, and you think, ah yes, standard military bureaucracy, and you move on without ever reading Order 66. It's actually kind of brilliant if true, but let's be honest, the fan consensus is that this is a joke. A LEGO game Easter egg that exists purely because the tonal whiplash is funny. And honestly, after everything we've covered so far, a mandatory dance break sounds pretty reasonable. But if you think the Republic had strange contingency orders, wait until you hear about the one Palpatine built for the Separatists. Order 99. Every order we've covered so far has one thing in common. They're all aimed at the Republic's own forces. Clones turning on Jedi, clones detaining the Chancellor, clones rounding up civilians. But Order 99 flips the script entirely. It wasn't about the clones at all. It was a contingency order that, if activated, would have authorized the Grand Army of the Republic to take immediate military action against the Separatist droid army's central command infrastructure, specifically targeting the control ships. Here's the thing. The Separatist droid army had one massive, glaring weakness baked into its design. Nearly every battle droid in the field was dependent on a central control signal broadcast from orbital command ships. Cut the signal, and the droids just stop. They don't fight back, they don't retreat, they become expensive furniture. The Trade Federation learned this the hard way at the Battle of Naboo when a single starfighter destroyed their droid control ship, and every battle droid on the planet's surface dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. And Palpatine knew about this vulnerability better than anyone, because he controlled both sides. He was the Chancellor directing the Republic's military strategy, and the Sith Lord pulling the strings of the Separatist alliance. Every control ship, every command frequency, Every droid shutdown code was information he had access to. He could have ended the entire war in an afternoon, because that's exactly what eventually happened. When the Separatist leadership was no longer useful, Darth Vader walked into that bunker on Mustafar, killed every one of them, and a shutdown signal was transmitted to the entire droid army. Billions of battle droids across the galaxy just turned off. Every battle, every sacrifice, every clone and Jedi who died over 3 years of galactic war, all of it happened inside a cage that one man held the keys to. The war wasn't a conflict. It was a performance. But if controlling both armies wasn't enough for Palpatine, wait until you hear what he had planned for his own apprentice. Order 151. The Clone Wars are over. The Jedi are dead. The Republic is gone. Palpatine has literally everything he ever wanted. And what does he do with his newfound unlimited power? He builds another kill switch, this time pointed directly at his own apprentice. Order 151 was created after the Empire's establishment, and it had one job. If activated by Palpatine, every remaining clone trooper would immediately open fire on Darth Vader. His own soldiers, the ones marching beside him, the ones he commanded on a daily basis, all of them, turned into a firing squad at the push of a button. And here's the thing about the numbering. The original contingency system was Orders 1 through 150. That was the complete framework. Palpatine designed it, sealed it, embedded it into clone biochips, and called it done. Order 151 exists outside that system entirely. It's an addendum, a post-credits scene, which means Palpatine looked at his finished masterpiece of galactic manipulation and thought, you know what, I should probably also be able to kill my best employee. Vader found out about it too. Clone Commander Vil either slipped up or was fed the information, because Vader learned exactly what Order 151 was designed to do, and his response was about as subtle as you'd expect. He killed Commander Vil on the spot. No trial, no interrogation, just immediate silence. Can't have that kind of information floating around the barracks. Some fans actually theorize Palpatine let Vader discover the Order on purpose, not as a genuine threat, but as a reminder. A little note slipped under the door that says, I can end you whenever I want. Pure Sith rule of 2 energy. Every partnership is temporary. Every apprentice is a future corpse. Palpatine didn't trust anyone, and he made sure Vader knew it. But if you think a kill switch on one man is extreme, wait until you hear about the protocol designed to melt entire planets. Base Delta Zero. Every order we've covered so far targets people. Specific people, groups of people, maybe a whole city's worth of hostages. Base Delta Zero targets planets. This is the Imperial Naval Code authorizing orbital bombardment at a scale that doesn't just destroy military targets or level cities. It melts the upper crust of a planet into molten slag. Everything on the surface, every building, every forest, every living thing, reduced to a sea of glowing rock. There's no surrender protocol. There's no evacuation window. There's just fire from orbit until the scanners stop detecting anything that could be called a surface. And here's the thing. The Republic had orbital bombardment capabilities during the Clone Wars. They could glass a surface when they needed to, but it was treated the way you'd treat a nuclear option. Extreme measures reserved for absolute last resort scenarios, situations where an enemy had entrenched so deeply that no conventional assault could reach them. It was the we've tried literally everything else button. Then the Empire formalized it into doctrine. They gave it a name. They gave it a code. They built an entire operational framework around turning planets into slag. Under Imperial command, Base Delta Zero wasn't an emergency protocol. It was a routine extermination tool. Entire star systems were kept in line through the ever-present threat that their planet could simply stop existing. But here's where it gets genuinely sickening. The Empire treated these operations with total bureaucratic detachment. Worlds that showed disloyalty didn't get invaded or sanctioned. They got erased. And then the Empire filed the paperwork like it was a standard military engagement. Just another system pacified. Clean language for the dirtiest thing imaginable. This isn't a military operation. This is genocide with a naval code attached to it. The kind of thing that makes Order 37's hostage tactics look almost quaint by comparison. And it represents the clearest illustration of what the transition from Republic to Empire actually meant. The restraint didn't change because the tools changed. It changed because the people in charge stopped pretending they needed a reason. But all of these orders, from the mundane to the monstrous, share one thing in common. They all had to start somewhere. Order initiation. Every single order we just covered lives inside one document. It's called the Contingency Orders for the Grand Army of the Republic. Order initiation, Orders 1 through 150, the succession protocols, the emergency detainments, the Jedi execution, the military governorships, the quarantine lockdowns, all 150 orders written into official Republic military protocol. Meanwhile, a separate piece of technology handled the real dirty work: inhibitor chips implanted into every clone trooper during early embryonic development, before they had eyes, before they had lungs, before they were anything resembling a person. The contingency orders themselves were standard military doctrine, an authenticated command from the Supreme Chancellor or an authorized governmental authority, and whichever order was called would activate through normal chain of command. But the inhibitor chips, those existed for one reason: to guarantee absolute, unquestioning compliance with Order 66 specifically. No debate, no hesitation, no moral deliberation, just compliance. But here's the thing that makes Palpatine genuinely terrifying. It's not Order 66, it's the other 149. Think about it. If anyone had ever questioned why the clones had contingency orders involving the Jedi, what would they have found? Democratic safeguards, succession protocols, emergency procedures for protecting the Republic against every conceivable threat, including a rogue chancellor. Order 65 literally authorized the clones to arrest or kill the Supreme Chancellor. That's not a dictatorship's playbook. That's a democracy's safety net. And that was the entire point. Palpatine didn't just plan a coup. He built an entire bureaucratic reality to hide it in. 149 reasonable orders existed for the sole purpose of making the 150th one look normal. Standard military procedure, just another contingency, nothing to worry about. Which raises one final question nobody can fully answer. The Kaminoans built the clones, they implanted every chip, but they were told the inhibitor chips existed to curb aggressive tendencies inherited from Jango Fett. So were they duped by the Sith into engineering the galaxy's most obedient killing machines? Or did they suspect something and just not care enough to ask questions? I don't know what to tell you. But either way, the clones never had a choice. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.